He basically walked quickly through the brewery with our head team and was just like, you guys are not running a world-class facility. You guys are jokers. And he sat us down and it was dad talking to the kids. Like the way you guys are running your QA QC process is abominable. You are either trying to produce world-class beer every day or you're going to go out of business. Figure this out and like redo everything or get out. And like he's like, it won't bite you today. Maybe you'll figure this out for a bit, but in a year, 2 years, at some point, this is gonna screw you. And that was when we were like, holy shit. This is your second act, where the plot twists back. You've been there, done that. Now you're building for the love. The stack, oh yeah. Laughing at the highs and the lows you track. Welcome to your second act.
Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pumped to be here.
All right, so your first company, which we're going to get into, is like right up my alley. I got into, what's beer, right? So that's a very stereotypical thing for like some guy to be like, yeah, I'm also into beer, right? But my wife says this, she's like, guys often we just need like an overlap on something. They're like, you golf and I golf, great, we could be best friends, right? Oh,
We're
you
good to
like craft
go.
beer?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. We just need one overlapping. The Venn diagram has to like barely overlap, and basically you can get along with anybody, I find. But I got into craft beer, like I think it was 2008. I was living in Edmonton in Canada, and there was this one craft brewery called Alley Cat.
Okay.
No one was into craft beer yet. I didn't think. So there was really like you were a Molson person in Canada. You're either a Molson person or a Labatt person. It was like being Ford or Chevy. It was just you only got to choose
Fine.
one of two teams. I don't know what it was like. I don't know if the US was the same where there was you like Bud Light or
Yeah, it might
your
be like
something.
Bud, Miller, Coors. Like you got to pick one of those three, and like the Miller High Life people are like their own little subset. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you get into like give me the
Yeah.
background. It's called Night Shift, right? So how
Yeah.
did it get started?
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, like same time period as you almost. Like, I mean, I went to college at Bowdoin College up in Maine, and Maine has an amazing craft beer scene, like has for decades. And so at Bowdoin, like we were surrounded by some of the best breweries in New England. And so, I mean, that was like the beginning, right? It's just like you got all this good beer around you. We're poor college students, so like, mostly we were drinking crappy stuff, and then like every once in a while, someone would foot the bill on an Allagash white keg or a Geary's or a Gritty's or whatever. And those were like for us the first sort of foray into like, damn, beer could be really good, right? And like I can get into this. And so we nerded out a little bit in college about that stuff, and that was just like part of the culture there. And then we moved down. A bunch of us moved down to Boston after graduating in 2007, and that's when we like kind of brought this like mindset of like, oh, I drink good beer, not crap. And it was like, well, can I make good beer too? Like, there's this home brewing shop down the street from us in Somerville, and it was like a thing, right? I mean, you entered at kind of the same time where we were just like, craft beer is blowing up. There's new bottles like popping up on shelves almost every week. All my friends seem to be talking about it, and I can make some of this stuff. Like let's just dive in, right? And we all had like jobs, that day jobs. And so like, work during the day and then like drink beer, talk about beer, brew beer, whatever it is, beer at night. Like that was it.
Yeah, that was the two sides. You had two parts to your day, right? You had your
Yeah.
work day, and then you had where you were like the smallest version of a microbrew. So I did make beer one time. I did it when everyone else did it during COVID, where everyone decided that was going to be when they were going to brew their own beer and make their own sourdough bread, right?
Yeah.
It took way longer. And I made an IPA, which I believe is like one of the fastest ones to make, the easiest
Yep.
ones to make sometimes at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah,
I
it
made
is.
it and it took me forever. My kitchen was a disaster. Everything smelt like sour oatmeal for like several days after. I'm siphoning stuff out of a tube. I have no idea what I'm doing, but our kitchen looks like a chem lab. So
Yes.
is this what your guys are you doing it all at one? I'm trying to picture this group of guys. Are you doing it all in one person's apartment or where are you doing this?
we kind of all lived in the same spots between like 2007 when we started home brewing and like when we transitioned from home brewing to like the business in 2012. We basically lived in two different places in Somerville, down the street from each other. And I kind of more or less think of it as like if you weren't living with us, you were often sleeping over in our place somewhere. So like this group of it was all guys at the time were just like brewing beer pretty regularly, right? And there was like a core three or four of us that were just like every week just getting equipment, doing new stuff, right? And then like people would kind of like come in and out, right? Like new roommates, people would leave, but whatever. There's this core group, and we had the disaster kitchen, we had the living room with a bunch of buckets and all that. Like what's funny is like I've talked to so many people who have this same experience. They just didn't go on to like start a brewery, but like they did the same path of like, yeah, I got into this and homebrewed and like so like there's a lot of people that like this story resonates and they're like, I thought about a brewery, but like that seems crazy. And
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. It is. Like, what at what point do you decide you're going from, we're making this because it's fun, it's a little hobby, we have a few friends over, maybe we have a
Yeah.
tasting party from time to time, or did you right away think like, this is going to be a business, we're really going to focus on it, and it'll just take time to grow?
I think we dreamed of starting a brewery from day one because like how can you not, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think unless you are unless you are like wildly satisfied by your job in your early 20s and or very driven on a career path that you're absolute about, right? Like I am going to become like one of the best surgeons in the world kind of path and like okay, like nothing's going to stop you. Go unless you're like on a path kind of like that. I just think like you're like you can dream about other paths and like at the time our hobby was brewing, we were drinking beer, so like that was just the dream path. And as we got more and more into it, like the natural obsession did become like really big and this was independent of like a business. And like I will say this, we were brewing an unreasonable amount of craft beer. We had our landlord coming by being like, I don't know if I want to continue leasing to you guys because this is a
Right.
dangerous amount to like of liquid to have on the floor in this room. So like it did become ridiculous. And we had spreadsheets and tasting charts and all this stuff. And there was sort of a passion for what we were doing by, this sort of growing community of people that would come to our parties. And it was like a two-story thing and we had six people living in it and everyone would invite everyone, so it would be like 100+ person tasting parties and we took them pretty
Mm.
seriously. However, like i I think like the desire to start a business was as much driven by like we we didn't want to work for people anymore, we wanted to start our own thing, and it happened to collide with like we're also excited about beer, so it was just like
Yeah.
I want to go do something, I love beer, I'm going to combine these two things. Yeah.
Yeah, and when does it go from, I imagine initially it's an expense. You're using money from your day job to brew this beer and then have people over, and it's a
Yeah.
fun thing to do. At some point, you have to make money from this. When does that switch happen? And I imagine it's a relatively regulated industry, like any food product or beverage product, but then you add alcohol into it. When does it switch from a hobby and a fun thing to do into a business where you're going to be making money at it?
Uh, I mean, it definitely was just a expensive hobby for 2007 to 2012, just pure expense. I will say, like we lived in cheap Somerville housing at the time and didn't really spend a lot on anything, so like it was okay. We managed. However, yeah, I mean, I think it was around like 2010, 2011 we started like writing the business plan and like thinking about what would be sort of like a professional upgrade and how would we sort of turn this into a business. Ultimately raised money through promissory notes with friends and family and raised like it was like 150K seed capital through friends and family through a promissory note. And so like that funding sort of got us to, like a big brewing equipment that was like glorified home brewing, but like could work on a quote unquote professional scale. some plastic fermenters and enough money to like build out like a small little space, Everett warehouse. I think what's interesting about like looking back on this is at the time, like we didn't know enough to not do it, right? Like we were just ignorant enough of how hard it was going to be and all the legal hurdles and all the crap that was in front of us that we were just like, screw it, we're just going to try and we'll fail or we won't, but like we're going to do it. And I do think there's like something to be said for being like a little ignorant. Ignorance is bliss, or whatever you want to say. Like so many people that were already in the industry, and we were talking to them and they were like, you're crazy, don't do it, like you guys don't know, you guys don't have the experience, like I don't think you should get into this. If we had known all the stuff that they knew, we wouldn't have done it, but like that was almost a hindrance, knowing all of that, so it helped that we were stupid.
Yeah, well, you get told no. I remember when we started, I had a tech company and we went on this business. It wasn't a podcast, but it was like this radio show of some kind. And the guy was a really good tech investor, had seen a lot of stuff. And he straight up said to us, he goes, "This probably won't work out very well." And I remember thinking, I'm like, what the hell does he know? Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
that's what we thought, same thing.
every problem he said came true immediately.
Did
Right.
it?
Like, and yeah, they all came true, but you're just so stubborn or you're just so set on this idea. You push through a lot of those things. Like
You
the
just
problems
push
do
through.
happen exactly the way that they say it is. And then you end up pushing through it. But you're right. If you look backwards, if you're like, okay, if someone pitched me the idea,
Yeah,
hey, how would you like to spend 10 years grinding it out the whole time with like no clear path to it being successful? Maybe you go bankrupt several times during that. And then maybe there's like a 20% chance you're going to exit even after all of that.
yeah,
No one takes that. No
no
one
one
takes
takes
that
it.
deal. No,
No,
no one does.
no, that's exactly it. So there we
So
go.
you start, so you have this brew. Now it becomes a thing, right? Like you're
Yeah,
selling it. Are you selling it in liquor stores? Are you selling it? Well, where do you sell this?
the original plan was just all wholesale. Like we were just thinking,
Okay.
we'll just go around. Like we had some initial conversations with some local bars and some local liquor stores, and they were just like, yeah, like you know, craft beer's hot. Like, give me what you got. I mean, a few were like, fuck off. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want your swill. But like,
Yeah.
some were open, and so the original plan was like, okay, we'll take our Subaru, we'll drive around, we'll drop it off, we'll invoice people. Like, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Like, the whole idea of like invoice it, anyway. Uh, and we'll figure this out. And that's kind of what we did. And we had, maybe like 20 accounts to start, and it was bars and liquor stores in like Cambridge, Somerville, Boston. Yeah, so we like what we weren't banking on is people wanting to come to this like sketchy, hard to find warehouse in Everett and just showing up looking for samples, looking to buy bottles from us direct, looking for brewery tours, which was like the weirdest thing in the world because it was just one big room and it was like not that interesting and people still wanted to like have us walk through it and like it was horrible. It smelled like but like whatever, people want to be part of that. I think what I didn't bank on was like how connected people want to be to the product, to the people making the product, how interesting that is that there's this brewery 15 minutes away that's kind of in a weird spot and I'm going to tell my friends about it and there's like a story that I want to be part of. And that was cool. Like we did not realize that would be so cool. So ultimately about half of our business for like the first few years it stayed at roughly like 50 to 40% was D2C just out of our door, and the margins were even higher there. So like what I will say is like the business plan we wrote disappeared after like 3 months, and we were profitable in like 3 months because of the D2C business, and we just weren't banking on that at all, and that was like very nice.
Yeah. Well, I think this timing is really good too. I'm curious, how much of your success would you associate with how good of operators these 20, whatever you guys were, mid 20s or something, versus hot market, lots of demand and interest, lots of sampling too. I think that's the hardest thing with craft beer as an operator, I've heard. For the consumer, it's like insanely good. Like
Yeah,
you could try a new beer every day that you wanted, and there's always a new one. But I imagine as an operator, that's hard because they're not that loyal, right? Is the market pulling you guys in, or are you having to really push this liquid into places and getting it out there, or is there general like a lot of demand out there, and it's you can't make it fast enough.
Yeah. I mean, I can't credit like operator brilliance at all. I think we were, we did not make some big mistakes, right? Like we didn't make big enough mistakes to blow us up. Like that was enough, right? Like we didn't make anything that was just fundamentally a horrible mistake that ruined the business. We prioritized customer service above everything, just making sure anyone that wanted our beer got like the best experience possible. And we were at the intersection of a lot of good things happening, and we were lucky. So like, I think we did some things like right enough, no things horribly wrong, and also had like a very lucky entrance into the industry, and like through sheer just like will, like made
Yeah.
the most of that luck. Like we recognized we were in sort of like an opportunistic situation. It was just like, how do we not screw this up for as long as possible?
I don't think people realize how many mistakes you can make and still continue as long as the mistakes aren't these bet the farm type of mistakes, right?
Yeah,
You can make a ton of little errors along the way, and one account, maybe you don't deliver on time, that account gets pissed off and they decide not to reorder, but you got 19 other accounts, so
yeah.
you hedge a little bit against it. Was there ever like an inflection point? Because I think you, over the lifetime of the company, like $200 million in sales, which is
Yeah,
crazy. I imagine if
crazy.
you like, that's like insane. I was looking up how many companies ever exceed more than $1 million in sales on an annual basis, and it's less than 5% of businesses
Is that
in
right?
North America will ever exceed $1 million. It's yeah, it's like 200 million. I'm sure it's like, I don't know what the percentage is. It's probably in the 0.1% of companies will ever generate that much revenue. So was there an inflection point where you're like, holy shit, this is working?
This is a real business.
Yeah.
I think there's a few different like big moments. I think the first, I'll do two. The first big moment was when we did realize like we couldn't make enough to keep up with demand, and it was like late 2013, and we were basically like, we have outgrown our current facility. We are like a real business now. Like we're gonna hit like our $1 million revenue mark, like lifetime cumulative. We realized like we need to sign a lease on a new warehouse, like start the build out of that and get a loan to fund it. And I'm like talking with mass development bankers about getting a loan, and we're hiring people. And I'm suddenly like, this went from a little hobby with the three friends running this little outfit to like, I have staff. I'm worried about HR stuff. I'm worried about
Yeah.
like loans and underwriters. And it just suddenly was like, shit, we're running a business. Like this is different. And then I would say the second big inflection moment was soon after that. We had moved to the new space. Maybe it was like a year and a half after. Moved to the new space, huge tap room. We had put like, it was about $1 million into the whole build out. You know, 2,500 square foot, big customer space, huge stainless steel brewery out back, like whole team of people running this brewery. There was like this period where we started getting, we were running like tests on the beer, and some of it started coming back infected. And
Hmm.
like one batch of infected beer, like that sucks. That's like $30,000 you have to put down the drain. Like that's really unfortunate. Doesn't put you out of business, right? But it was like one, and then another, and then like a couple of days later another, and like it was just like money was starting to tally up on both the cost and then also the like revenue we were counting on that we didn't have from those tanks. And we had this guy Will from Cambridge Brewing Company, who's sort of like very well respected in the industry and like knows his shit, comes by. We asked him like, what is happening? How do we, like, we don't know what we're doing all of a sudden, and we feel really out of our league, and it feels like things are going off the rails really fast. And he basically walked quickly through the brewery with our head team, and was just like, came back, did an audit, and was like, you guys are not running a world class facility. Like this is like, you guys are jokers. And like he
Right.
sat us down, and it was like dad talking to the kids. Like
Yeah.
he was like, this is a joke. Like the way you guys are running your QA QC process is abominable. And like he's like, you are either trying to produce world class beer every day, or you're going to go out of business. Like you
Hmm.
can't have one or the other. Like, you can't half ass your QA QC lab process. Like just figure this out and like redo everything or like get out. And like he's like,
Right.
it won't bite you today. It might not bite. Maybe you'll figure this out for a bit, but like in a year, 2 years, at some point, this is gonna screw you. And
Yeah.
that was when we were like, holy shit! Like, okay, let's. We sat down with our whole team. We were like, from this day forward, it is world class beer or bust.
Mm,
We threw away all of our old lab equipment, bought a ton of new stuff. It was like dumped a bunch of beer. It sucked short term, and then long term set us up for like the road we went on, which was just like nothing goes out the door that hasn't like passed all the lab specs, and it's taken really seriously. And like we shifted our entire approach to like how we made liquid.
crazy. That's
Crazy,
crazy. That because you were probably running it the same way you were running it out of your kitchen. Almost like it's the
correct.
same people. All
A
of it. It's
grown
not
up
like all of
version
a
of it.
sudden.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like your business gets popular and has customers, and all of a sudden you're a different person.
you're
Like
not
you
a
still
different
have the
person.
same. Yeah, you're same dude, right? Just happens to be like with a really popular thing and can buy more equipment than they could before. What
Yeah.
was the what would you say was the peak of the entire business? Like when were you sitting there and going
Yeah.
like looking back now, right? Like what was the day or the week or the month where you're just like,
I'll tell
this
you.
is the greatest.
I'll tell you. It was when it's like very obvious or it's like stamped in my mind. It's when we the first night we opened up our Esplanade beer garden. So we ended up like we negotiated and secured like a somewhat long-term lease on big beer garden right on the Charles River in Boston, like right along the river, like the best possible place in the world for a beer garden. And this was like, I don't know, 20, I think it was like 2018. We opened up this big beer garden. There's a line of people like all the way along the Esplanade. Like people start coming in, and I just like, one of our bartenders like poured some whirlpools for a bunch of us, and we just like cheers along the Charles River, and like the sun's setting. There's this giant crowd. We're in like the best possible place to have a beer garden. Everything was kind of just flowing, and I was like, holy shit! Like this is as much as you can ask for as a brewery. Is like the best possible place to drink a beer. I'm drinking my beer with like really good people. I have an amazing team around me, and like customers that love this beer and this brand just flooding in, like excited to just come hang out with us. Like that was just, I don't know, it was like pinnacle. Like, all right, this is it. We're good.
That's the dream, right? Like you
Yeah,
kind of realize the dream that could have been, and then you're actually sitting there. It's got a little bit of like a out of body experience, I imagine, where and it's still the same. Was it still were the three partners involved all the way through?
all the way through.
Cool.
One of them stepped back a little bit near the end, and he just like got involved in some other stuff, and like there was no hard feelings or anything. So he did like take a couple steps back from his day to day involvement, but like literally day one to the very end, the three of us stayed together. We all exited owning like roughly 27 to 28% of the company. We had plenty of fights along the way, but nothing that like ripped the business apart. That was probably one of the luckier, like, I don't know how we did that, but it worked out well to have three founders that like all work together and like live together for a bit, not tear each other apart. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people when they're thinking of who they're going to go into business with, I tell them I'm like, take it more seriously than you do with like a wife or husband, like a partner,
that's true.
because there isn't a lot of outs in business that aren't very, very complicated. Especially,
So
you got
messy.
three founders, like what the company's not really worth anything, but it's worth something on paper, and no one has money to buy each other out. Like I have friends that have gone through it, and it gets messy. It gets messier than divorces get, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, you got to find the right people to get in it with because it's such a grind too. So tell me about the exit. I know that you also had you built like distribution underneath the company, which is essentially like is that you're dropping off the beer's got to get from the brewery, it's got to get to the place where it's being
yeah,
sold, and it needs a way to get there. And you guys were doing those Subarus at the beginning, it sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah,
Just tell me quickly, like, why did you start a distribution? And then would you do that again, like own that infrastructure
yeah,
underneath?
yeah. 100% would own it again.
Mm,
Started it accidentally, like not accidentally, as a matter of like circumstance, because when you start a craft brewery in Massachusetts, almost always, almost every brewer in the state uses what's called a farmer brewer license, which it has nothing to do with farming, but like it happens to come with a self distribution component. So you're allowed to basically own your own distribution if you want, and just drive your stuff around to drop it off and like manage it your own, however you want, right? And like most breweries don't get that big, like they just don't choose to scale, and so they stay at like a mom and pop size, and they just kind of like drive it around to their stores and drop it off, and that's that. So that's kind of what we started doing, and then like 2015 we were growing and like had just chosen to like try and scale fast, and like the demand was there, and yet we sort of hit this cap on what Massachusetts allows is like what you can self distribute under that farmer brewer license, like the law. And so we were faced with this like weird choice of like, well, do we just stop growing and kind of cap ourselves and self distribute some more, or do we sign with a distributor that's out there? And there's not that many distributors in Massachusetts, and the franchise laws for this kind of stuff are pretty tricky. Like it's like if you sign with someone, it's basically like you're locked for life, no divorce, without like some expensive legal battle. So we were like, I don't know, like I don't really want to sign with any of these big guys yet. And we just like we talked to a bunch of people who had done it, and they were smaller, and they were like, you lose so much control of your brand. Like if you're not their top priority, the distributor will just put you in the back and like forget about you. So we just heard horror stories, and we were like, well, I don't want to experience that. So we ended up creating this entity, Night Shift Distributing, which bought beer from Night Shift Brewing, and we just started our own distributor. Which like I don't we weren't like I don't think we thought it was like brilliant or creative. We just were like, this is just a great way to get around the law legally.
Yeah.
And so we just did that, and we quickly like realized this is great. It allows us to keep the margin, right? Because we're selling it to ourselves, so that margin is kept. Allows us to like that was key, but what was more key was like owning the relationships and like maintaining those sales relationships really well with all of our accounts, because it's like my delivery guys going in and talking to their people, my sales guys going in
Yeah.
and talking to their people, and it's just like if they have problems, you hear it. Like you can solve things quickly. You get feedback that much more quickly. Like owning that channel is just so important, and you're just always your top priority.
Yeah.
And then we ultimately were like, we did the math, and we're like, okay, well, if I'm going to go to a liquor store and drop off 10 cases of night shift beer, that's fine. But if I drop off 10 cases of night shift beer, but also 5 cases of wine and 3 cases of another beer and 3 cases of another brand's beer, that's even better. Like from a per gas basis, from a per delivery guy cost basis, it all just like maths out. The more you're putting out per stop, the better. So we started signing more brands and stuff, and it was a juggling act to make sure that everyone felt prioritized. Suddenly we can't be the only most important brand in the truck. It's like everyone's important to some extent, but it worked out. We grew that for 5 years, and then ultimately sold the distribution business sort of when it got to this point where we were like, wow, this is now delivering to like 2,000 stores. It was a real like we had gotten so big, and it was like, do we buy a box truck or a fermenter next month? The brand just ended up becoming more important, and the brewery more important than the distribution company. That's just what we wanted to run. And we also just we saw sort of an opportunity to sell it at a pretty good multiple, and we were just like, let's take this. It'll help pay off a ton of the debt that we'd accumulated for the company. It'll put us in a great cash position as like a company itself to just sort of like deal with whatever comes our way. And ultimately that was that looked like a good choice.
It's interesting because you do it, you build this distribution company to solve your own problem, but it turns into like a fully fledged business,
Dude,
like delivery business. And it's not like you guys were sitting around the apartment originally being like, you know what we want to do? We want to own trucks and have
that's so
drivers
true.
and we just want to move stuff around. Like, yes, it's in beer, but you could have couches in there for like it's the same business. It's just a delivery
100%.
business, right? So you get into now you have two entirely different businesses that
Entirely
just
different.
so you're running two businesses essentially. So you sell the distribution business first. That helps kind of shore up the brewing business, get it,
Correct.
a bunch of cash in the bank. You can make some decisions there. And then what do you do with the brewing business? Like tell me about how that ends up, how you end up exiting that business.
Yeah. So then And it was like, okay, I'll focus on the brewing business. We were lucky that like we were somewhat diversified in that we had like these beer gardens that were operating. We had opened a restaurant and brew pub in Boston, sort of like next to TD Garden. And like that whole area of Boston was just like all of a sudden blew up right when we entered a little bit afterwards. Like traffic there was really strong, so we had good numbers there. We had an Everett tap room, which was like its own little D2C business. So we had these little D2C components, which were great from a profit perspective, and also great from like a marketing and brand building perspective. And then out in the wholesale world and out in the markets, like we had been expanding. But what was interesting was like a couple things. Right before we sold the distribution business, COVID happened, which like really thwarted our original plan was to like build a Philadelphia brewery, like this mega brewery in Philadelphia. Stopped that, stopped us from doing a $20 million build out. In hindsight, huge blessing. I don't think a lot of businesses can say COVID was a blessing, but for us it probably was because it stopped something really expensive from happening. And then, sort of in the years following the distribution sale, so that happened in 2021. I mean, I think like a few things. We quickly realized like we cannot as profitably make beer in our own facility as we can in a larger facility, which Philly was going to solve but didn't because we didn't do it. But then we found contract brewers that could make our beer much more cheaply than even we could make it ourselves in our own facility because our equipment and our whole facility was just weird. And so it was like, damn, like we can outsource a lot of our brewing to a contract manufacturer, keep the quality the same, and over time through like we had a propane or not a propane, a CO2 shortage or whatever. We ended up positioning ourselves to basically like move a lot of our production out of house. And so then suddenly like 10% maybe of our brewing was in house. We're kind of like this hospitality brand sales company. Like we're not really a brewery anymore. And so at that point, we were kind of like, well, what's the growth path from here? And how do we like scale? And the industry was also starting to hit a lot of headwinds. Like demographics of people who are drinking beer was starting to shift a little bit. And I think we kind of saw writing on the wall of like, well, maybe people are going to like slow down their drinking and like maybe like the craft beer boom is like has boomed. And we started having conversations with a few different people about like potential exits. And there was definitely an appetite for it at the time. And so it was like what started as like a let's just explore this became this feels like a real thing. And I think the three of us had spent whatever 13 14 years in the industry. I think we all felt kind of like we've done all the things we really wanted to do, and like if we have an exit now, like we'll feel pretty good about it as long as like the terms aren't horrible and like
Yeah.
we feel like everyone's kind of happy with the multiple and all that. So ultimately sold to the company, the Hendler family company, which was also contract manufacturing almost all of our beer. And so they were
Mm.
like well incentivized to keep us in house, right? Because if we sold to someone else and all of that goes somewhere else from them, I think it was like 30 to 40%, maybe 50% of their production was our beer.
Wow. I just want to kind of pause on that because that's really
Yeah,
interesting. So you've got the people that are brewing your beer, you're a very high level customer of theirs. So you're like one of their top customers, if not their top customer.
top customer.
And
Yeah,
so you're their top customer, and they could see the writing where their top customer, if you get bought by somebody else, of course they're going to move. That company's going to take wherever they want, right? Maybe they
totally.
bring it in house or otherwise. So they're kind of looking at it like we could lose our top customer, who makes up 40% of our revenue in like a snap, right? So yeah, they're totally incentivized to pick you guys up. What does a deal look like that where they're
Yeah.
buying their customer in a way? Like what is that? You don't have to get into too many of like the
Yeah,
financial
yeah.
details if you want, but I'm curious what that looks like because when we sold our company, we just sold the entire company, just sold all the shares in the company essentially. What does that look like in that exit?
I mean, it was technically a merger from a legal perspective. That was just interesting. We didn't like know that would be the vehicle through which we'd do it. So that was just interesting. From so a few things. They're good people, and I think we're like pretty good people. Like I don't know, when you deal with good people, I just feel like okay, that's like generally better things happen than when you deal with bad people. It's
Yeah.
such a simple thing to say, but like it's true. We told them super early. Like we were like, we're looking at a potential sale. We're not talking to just you. and like you need to know that up front. So like they knew that was on the table, and I think everyone tried to be as open about it as possible the entire time through. What we did end up doing was like we obviously talked around, but like they were well incentivized, but they also had their concerns or whatever. But we kind of got to a point where it was like, let's agree on terms and then like start moving on due diligence and like make sure everyone's really good with sort of how this would look, right? And we spent a long time doing it. We kept communication super open, and everyone was like very transparent and like I'll say like pretty chill and cool about the whole process. And so it wasn't short. Like literally, it took about a year to happen, and it was very stressful. I think for everyone involved. But I will say, from a output perspective, everyone came out of it feeling pretty good about the deal. They retained like 95% of the staff. Like the people that they didn't keep were like the guys running it, like us, and like we didn't really want to continue to stay involved once we sold it. Like we didn't want jobs, and then like our head brewer, he wanted to go do other stuff anyway, so like they didn't need a head brewer. That was fine. So like they kept almost everyone, and they were really good about it. And we talked to all of our staff, and like I mean, everyone they own Jack's Abbey, the brand, which is pretty famous or popular down here as well. And so like everyone knew the Jack's Abbey brand, was very familiar with it, and so it was like a pretty feel good transition. When I think about other ways in which it could have gone down, I'm like that was actually pretty good.
Yeah. And so what year was that? What year did you close that exit?
Well, we started in 2024 like early, and then I think the ultimate like the date of closing was like January 6th, 2025.
Okay. So yeah, just over a year ago. Night shift. So I'm in Vancouver in Canada, but Pacific Northwest would be like the region, right? Big
Yeah,
craft brewery area, but craft brewing can be quite regional, right? So
very much.
I imagine, well, I've heard of Night Shift before, and I don't even know if it was distributed in the area. I just think I knew about the brand because it must have been exceptionally popular in like your region. Is that right? Like, was it, if you said it on the street to somebody, like, hey, yeah, I'm one of the owners of Night Shift, would people rate to be like, oh, I know that brand right away? Like, is it that recognizable?
Yeah, it's funny because I still freak out. Like I'm always like, oh, like yeah, I happen to own this brewery. Like back in the day, a few years ago, Night Shift. I don't know if you've heard. And they're like, yeah, of course I know Night Shift. And I'm always
Yeah.
like, really cool. Like
Yeah, yeah. You're
you
like,
know,
how do you know
I
about that? And they're like, well, it's in every liquor store, and of course
yeah,
I've
they're
heard of
like,
it.
are you kidding me? It's one of the most popular brands in the Northeast. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh wow, wow, that's crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a big like. I think there's like 50 plus people out there with like the logo, the owl logo of ours that I drew, like tattooed on their arm. Like we've got all
Whoa.
these images. It's like it has like a cult following amongst like the real people that love it,
Yeah,
and then it has become also much more sort of like widely popular amongst like the non craft beer snobby whatever geeky crowd.
yeah. Now that you don't own it, and it essentially was like it's your guys' baby. There's people with it tattooed on it. It's got that logo. Does it feel different not owning it? Like right now, you go into a liquor store, you see it on the shelf. Does it feel different than it did, the day before you sold it?
That's a great question. Does it feel different?
When you see the beer on a shelf right now, you walk into a liquor store this afternoon, you see it on the shelf. Do you feel excited or do you feel sad when you see it?
Excited. No, I feel
Okay,
excited.
cool.
Every time I feel excited,
Yeah.
they're gonna if they listen to this like the new owners, the only thing that'll drive me nuts is sometimes I'm like I wouldn't have chosen that font or something like
Yeah.
really label
For sure.
geeky because I'm like the label
Yeah.
geek guy. That's the only
Right.
like I'll pick up a can and be like oh like I don't know about that font.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, no, I have like pure fondness for the brand, and I think it's an that is an interesting answer because here's what I'll say. My path since exit has been like a very sort of like topsy turvy one, and I think my emotions like really went like the full gamut. And I now look at the beer and like see the brand out there, and I have like a true fondness for it and a little bit of nostalgia, but it's almost more similar to how I felt like during and before the sale. But I will say like in the moments after we sold, I had like a fuck it, thank God I'm done. I'm so done with this. Like it was such an arduous process, like a year long, whatever you want to call that, like exit, I was so done. I was like, thank God it's behind me. I never want to think about it again. Like, I'm out. Like I don't even want to look at the cans again. I was just so good with it. And then I think like 3 to 4 months later, I was like so I missed it, and I missed my role, and I missed the company, and I felt like really like sad about it. And I would see cans and be like, oh my God, like I missed this so much. I wish I was working on that, because like I had just been working on it a few months ago, and you suddenly lose that like piece of your life that has been like defined you for so long. And so it was a weird emotional journey that I did not expect to have happen. And I'm finally sort of like now, like again, like, oh, feel good about it. And
Yeah, you're
it
on the other
wasn't
side of
simple.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go, instead of going into another, what an obvious thing, and what most people do is they do the same. So they exit it and they're like, I learned a bunch of lessons. And they start, what would be the most obvious thing would be you start another brewery and you make none of the mistakes you made before. And it
Right.
starts at the point that you left Night Shift at.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've decided to go totally different direction. So you're co-founder in a company called Everfur. Give us an idea with it. It has nothing to do with brewing. It
Nothing.
couldn't be further. It's like my next company. I know my next company. I've been in digital advertising, my thing, whole like career. I know I'm going to be doing like flour milling. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
the
Right.
polar opposite of everything that I know. And I feel like you're doing a similar thing where you're moving into this like tech pet, kind of like nothing to do with brewing. So tell me about
Nothing.
Everfur and how you got into this.
Yeah. 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 Well, I will say, let's see, a few things. I mean, there was a period of time after I exited where I was like, oh, maybe I will stay in like beverage, but not alcohol, or maybe not beer, and just sort of take my learnings and apply those somewhere within like the beverage or even CPG industry. And I spent like a really long time reaching out to founders and reaching out to just like people running beverage, but also beverage beyond, like Run Amok Maple Syrup is like, cool company out of Vermont. And I chatted with him, and I was like, you're doing something so cool. Like I didn't know what to do because he had already founded the company, didn't need my help. But I was just trying to like, what is out there, and like where does it feel like I can be useful or spark something. Um, and I stayed in touch with Rob, my other like the other co-founder that I probably worked the most with, and we talked about like trying to start something together, and like there was all sorts of like paths started and stopped, right? I think ultimately where I landed was I did not want to join a company and work for someone. Like I could not wrap my head around and do that and feel good about it. I just like it's like
Mhm.
not in my DNA anymore. I wrote it
Yeah.
out. So that was interesting. And I just learned that like through conversations and experience. And then the other thing was I wanted a small team. Like I kept coming back to like I just want to start something small. But maybe the third thing was I don't know what I want to do. Like I didn't have a
Yeah.
great idea. And so, all right, you combine those things, and suddenly I got this introduction to this guy Faison, who's running this company. It's called Everfur. He's a PhD in computational biology. He's 29. He's got this really cool process where he takes fur and he runs it through a mass spectrometer, which I had never heard of really before, and he gets like disease signal from the biomarkers in it. And he had just finished like a pilot study that came back with some really interesting signal, but like there weren't really any sales. There was like an ambiguous sort of path for what the company was going to do. And he was in the middle of a raise, and we just started talking, and I was like, all right, small little team, ambiguous, or yeah, like a somewhat ambiguous path. And he needed a co-founder who had business experience, who was like could sort of complement sales, marketing, business, B2B, whatever. Like, and then just wear a bunch of other hats because there's like two people, three people. He had a cool ops guy, Raf, on the team as well. So um, I was like, I don't know anything about pets or this space or anything you're doing because I am not a science guy. But we bonded over like interest in like what's happening with AI and how to leverage that. And I mean, I'm not like a science guy, but like we spent enough time with like biology and like like the chemistry and biological side of like beer that I felt like I can like there's an interest there, and there's like a little bit of a synergy I can carry forward here. Um, and then I was like, we worked together really well, and like I just kind of did some like whatever you want to call it, like free consulting for a couple of months, and then bam, he was like, let's do this. Like you join, we're gonna like figure out a path, and like we've been at like this was late last year, and we've just been going forward ever since. And it's you know it's a tiny little team. We're only 5 people now, but like we've been doing some really interesting stuff, and it feels very much like the infancy of something special. And so like I get like a little bit of that like spidey sense of like, ah, this feels like the night shift early days, and so that's
Yeah.
very satisfying.
That's interesting. Do you have a pet?
I have 2 dogs. So, I mean,
Okay.
I will say, I've loved dogs my entire life. My favorite animal growing up was a wolf, to the point where wore wolf sweatshirts to school way
Right.
beyond when it was cool, like maybe third and fourth grade. Like, I am a dog and wolf guy. So there is that. Like, it's in my heart. I love pets. And I'll say this too. I think this is maybe like an interesting, maybe interesting point. Like, we were lucky that we started the craft beer company when craft beer was rising. But like we also weren't stupid, right? Like we entered an industry that we knew was booming. And like there's a great argument to be made that like if you're going to start something new, like be in a space that is growing and has huge opportunity. And like it's very clear that like the pet industry is in like a pretty good place right now, and it's hard not to ignore that like that's probably a great place to like put some effort and energy and like see what comes of it. So like directionally you can at least feel like you're moving into something strong. I would not start a craft brewery today and try and like fight the headwinds that those craft breweries are facing. I don't know how like there's plenty of craft breweries out there that are crushing it. So I don't think it's like a bad industry to be in. I just think it's, you know, you got to look at the writing on the wall, and like if you're going to start something, probably move in like a positive outcome direction that feels obvious from the start.
Yeah, there's what's that saying that you can be a good operator in a great market and succeed, but you can't be a great operator in a bad market and succeed, right? And
That sums up what I said better.
you'd probably be a great operator in a new brewery. Like because I mean,
Yeah,
you're in the
yeah,
0.1% of people that understand that business,
I
but the
would hope
market
so.
itself has changed a lot, right?
Yeah,
And you could be a maybe you're not you have a co-founder though who is the science of this as well. Would you consider yourself like a go-to-market guy? Is that where that's my background. So I was in a tech company, but I can't code. I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
can
yeah,
code
yeah.
with, I can like do a terrible job with AI now of coding, and say that I can do it. Like I do some vibe coding on the side. And I was always the go-to-market person. I knew the business. I knew everything except the code, but I had a co-founder that knew the code and was an expert in that. So we were like yin and yang for that. Where do you think you add the most value to a company like Everfur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I think go to market is true, but like I've had to first understand what the market is. So like
Hmm.
I don't feel comfortable saying like I'm a go to market guy in the pet space until I feel like I know this pet space well, and like can come at it with a pretty sound idea of like what would work and what won't. So like I think I understand consumers really well and like pick up on signal really well from like what I hear and see, and I think I have like a reasonable approach to like business strategy. And again, like I think it's like I know how to not screw up a bunch of stuff. Like
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
anything, I have failed a bunch of things in small enough ways in my past that didn't put me out of business in the brewery industry that I can like apply a lot of that to like us now, where I'm just like, let's not do X, Y, and Z. Let's not work with, you know, we're not going to go hire like, we're not going to go pay tons and tons of money on every influencer out there and trying like I know there's a bunch of paths out there that will not work for us, and like I kind of have an idea of where I think we should try and move the business. But like I think I think I'm a good founder because I don't have a giant ego, and like I'm very much open to like not knowing stuff and hearing what Faison wants to do and hearing what like our other guys in our team want to do, and like ingesting all of that and being like, okay, based on that feedback, like how do we iterate our plan? Because we haven't like we've figured out a lot of our strategies, but like we're still figuring out stuff every day. And there's a whole AI component that we're building now that's like literally changes because the technology changes every day. Like you know, but it's exciting. It's just, we're figuring that out. So I'm not sure I even answered your question that well, but I think I'm like consumer landscape, go to market, and then like B2B partnerships. I think I'm like figuring that out really quickly as well. And I think I know I can like talk to people. Okay.
Yeah, well, I find that founders of businesses are generalists in a lot of ways because they had to do everything. Like, you know, a little bit about HR, you know, a little bit about
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
software you're going to have to use, you know, a little bit about marketing, a little bit about sales. Like, you know, a little bit about everything. And even you might not have like this bio like chem background, but you're right. You worked in an industry and had a brewery that is like highly based on like the way that different things interact. Like it is a chemical process that's happening, right?
That's
And a
right.
biological process. So
Yeah.
so it's not that far. So what things would you say you have now from like your first act, from night shift, that you didn't have before you started night shift, that you will right away, like what are the lessons that you're going to help apply right away? And I don't know if you sat back and kind of thought about that, but what will you apply to Everfur
Yeah.
immediately that you learned?
Yeah. All right. There's I'll say like two jump out to start, and I'll say these two. One is I think I started night shift with a I can and will figure this out mindset, but not necessarily with the experience or confidence to back that up. And I think now it's like I can confidently feel and say like we'll figure this out, and just like I come at that with like so much confidence. Like I'm just like we will figure it out, and I know that, and I've seen it happen so many times where like I don't know, over the last few months we've had stuff happen to, even within Everfur, where it's like shit, this feels like really bad, or this feels like a big challenge, and I'm just like this will pass within 6 hours. Like, we will feel differently about it by tomorrow, and we will have a plan, and I'm not going to sweat this. And so I think like that level of like, let's stay the course, let's not be thrown by small things. And like, even if big things come our way, we'll probably figure it out, is like my like soundness of mind around that, I think is like very, very strong, where it would more easily sway or be, I'd just more easily stressed by stuff during the night shift days. So there's one. And then I think the other, which is probably like a little bit related, is just like pure amounts of focus and like the desire to drown out noise. I think the ability to drown out noise is something I hope to have in, 20 more years. But the desire to just like filter through crap, I think is really strong. And I think when you're starting a business, and through a lot of my days at night shift, you're just like, you can so easily just like shiny object, and you don't really know what to follow. And I think like eventually what I've learned to some extent is like you just got to pick something and follow it. And obviously be open to shifting when like you need to evolve yourself, your business, your path, your strategy, whatever. But like to some extent, what is it? There's a quote. It's like, a blind fool is more successful. No, a focused fool is more successful than an unfocused genius, or something. It's like I believe that. I really think like just pure focus is a wildly successful path. And I don't know if I could have said that 10 years ago with the same level of like confidence and assertion.
Yeah. And you know that you said that kind of the peak moment of night shift was you're out at that beer garden in the perfect spot. You have your own beer. There's like people enjoying it. What do you think that moment will be forever for? Like look into the future. What is that beer garden moment, do you think, where you're like, we did it?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Um, I mean, I think like so. Uh, I think it's something like, we have tens or hundreds of thousands of people who have um, used the Everfur app technology, whatever you want to call it, and or health test. Um, and I for some reason I go to like we're surrounded by dogs, right? Like it's got
Yeah.
to be at like an event where there's just dogs everywhere, and it's some sort of event where I don't know. It has to be an in-person event. I don't know why, but I just feel like that's appropriate. We're surrounded again by just like pet owners who have animals that have been helped by our technology, right? Like
Hmm.
because that's the ultimate goal. Where beer, the ultimate goal is like joy, right? And like togetherness. I think like for us, the ultimate goal is like dogs living healthier, happier, longer lives, and pet owners benefiting from that. And so some sort of experience that like has that happening in mass to me is like the big goal. And that probably is like another like, you know, never lose sight of your customers is maybe a lesson I'm carrying forward as well. It's just like
Yeah.
they are the signal, the purest signal of everything.
You know what? I talk to a lot of people that have businesses, and if you kind of ask that question, I almost have never heard someone give a financial answer where they're like, "We will hit $20 million in revenue," which is really surprising because it's a business, right? Like it's
Yeah,
supposed
yeah,
to have this financial outcome for shareholders. Like it's a spreadsheet at the end of the day. That's what people look at it, if
truth.
they're in finance. But it's more like you want to make a little dent in the universe almost, right? Like you just want to see that something you put all these hours into, all this stress,
Yes,
that like a bunch of people were like, "Hey, that's cool," right? That's kind
that
of all we want. We're just
yeah,
kids that are like, we just want someone to be like, that's kind of cool. That worked out.
yeah. You changed the world a little bit in like a
Just a
positive way
touch.
for some
Yeah,
people. I don't know. Maybe if you ask a CFO, they'll give you that. And I wouldn't
for
blame
sure.
them.
They'll be like, I would
But
like EBITDA margins to increase to 12%.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Well, I love it. I'm super excited forever for I do have a dog as well,
Do
and I
you? What kind
know
of dog?
like we have a doodle. We have a
Nice.
Aussie doodle. I think they only make poodles now, like some variation of poodle. I think
Yeah,
that's the only dogs that are out there. I grew up on a farm though, and so dogs to me are like they're an animal that eats
that's
food and
funny.
then runs
Yeah,
around and stuff. This dog in our family is closer to like a sibling of the
yeah,
family,
yeah.
except for me. Like it sleeps downstairs, but if I go away for work, that dog is like in everybody's bed, sleeping there, right? Like it's a part of the family. And then I come home, and it's almost like you see everyone just go like, you especially see the dog just be like, back to being a dog.
I know my place.
But I do see how important like the health of a dog is,
Yeah,
because when it is treated like a family member and not the same as, a sheep, right, on a farm, right, where it's just
yeah.
one of the other, an animal that you love very much, but an animal, and death is a part of, living on a farm. I didn't know life expectancy of a dog. I just knew it was until a coyote got it, right? Like that was it. That was
Wow,
how
that's
you
so
understood.
funny.
It's really sad in like retrospect. I don't think we had dogs that made it to 12 to 15 years old,
Oh my God.
just because it's just the natural kingdom doesn't really have that happen that often.
What an interesting perspective you have, though.
Yeah, but I do see like my mind has shifted on that quite a bit
Sure.
now. And now I see why, like the dog, you can see it has like feelings of what's going on, right? And it has like its stomach hurts, and it's concerned, and like everyone's concerned. So anything that makes it easier to like diagnose and treat a dog, I think is especially like preventative,
Yeah,
because then you don't run into that question where the surgery that it's going to require is $6,000, and you have to decide whether you're going to spend the
yeah.
$6,000 or not. Like you have too much control over it. I have this debate, not debate. I had to raise the question where I'm like, what is the limit that we're willing? And my wife and my kids will both say unlimited. I'm like,
No
well,
limit.
unlimited, it can't be unlimited, right? And then so I jokingly said replacement value one time. That didn't go over great.
God, I'm sure.
For sure not.
What a mistake.
For sure not. But I love the idea of preventative care in general, right? So if you're doing
Yeah,
it for people, why not do it for that? So it's really cool. I'm excited for you in this kind of like new direction that you're going. And it's a hell of a second act.
yeah. It's so different. I think part of it is like I came out of night shift like thirsty for something different, and it's so different and so new. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I didn't like beer. I didn't like I don't drink that much beer anymore, but like that wasn't it. I think part of it was just an excitement and a thirst for something new and different. This is obviously completely new and different.
Yeah.
And also like a personal attachment to like the idea of, helping dogs, helping animals. And like I will say there's like this moment, I didn't touch on this in our discussion around the exit, but I will say there was this moment where like myself and Rob kind of had this like we're not really like our core consumer anymore. We used to be like I knew my consumer because I was it, and then suddenly I wasn't, and it was kind of a freaky moment where I was like, I don't know what's driving them the same way I used to, and that's like, whoa, like how do I run a business successfully if I don't know our core consumer? And like, there's ways to figure that out, right? But I do think like that was an interesting insight that like I don't know. It did impact how we thought about the exit and the timing
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. It's much easier to like solve problems for yourself than it is to solve problems
Yeah.
for others. And I found that same thing. I've been in advertising most of my career, and I always wanted clients that sold products to me because I found it really hard to get in the mindset of a customer that wasn't me, that was like, you know,
Yeah.
a 65, I'm like 22. I'm like, we should just have beer clients, right? We should
Yeah.
just be doing like concerts and work with bands, and we have like a, you know, something for car insurance for like senior citizens, right? And I'm like, I don't know what they're
Yeah.
into. So
They're not
yeah,
gonna like my jokes.
it is, yeah, it's easier to be in it. So, well, this is cool.
Yeah.
It's been so good talking to you. I'm
Yeah.
I'm really pumped that you've got like this second chapter that you can do. I look at these things as chapters,
They are.
and if you keep doing the same thing, it's like, you know, it's a little bit repetitive. You can get, you know, better at it and hone a skill, and there's something to be said for mastery. But I think it's cool that you're going in this other direction, and we're excited to see where it goes. What would you say to listeners? What's a good way for them to interact with Everfur? Is the app out? Is that the thing to do?
Yeah.
Download the
That's
app?
probably
Yeah.
the easiest. I mean, you can go to like everfur.com and like bump around, but like on the App Store or Google Play, just type in Everfur. It's spelled Everfur, and you can just download the app and mess around. I mean, if you're a pet owner, it's great. You can upload your pet's profile, and it's got all sorts of insights. And I'll say this: this is what's cool about it. The more you give it, the smarter it gets about knowing your pet, and it'll just like become context aware, and it'll pull vet records, and it'll start answering questions for you. So it's cool from that perspective. It's a tool that like I was always like, this would be cool to have as a pet owner, and suddenly I have it for myself and my dogs, and so I'm just like, I think people will like this. We got like 3,000 people already using it, so like enough people
Nice.
like it where I can recommend it confidently. And yeah, I mean, you know, we're gonna evolve it and change it, and like the whole point of a second act is to like apply learnings and figure out new stuff, and that's kind of like the path we're on now.
Yeah, great. Well, if you're in the like Northeast, go get a Night Shift Brewing product, download
Please
the
do.
app, and
Yeah.
you're just living in Michael's entire legacy in that moment, right? So it's been
Oh my
great having you
God.
on the show.
That's overwhelming. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a really fun conversation, awesome questions, and just like really, really good discussion. I like truly had a blast. This is really fun.
Curtain up, coffee cup, signed the deal, packed it up, big exit, big grin, but the story's just beginning now. Ballroom ghosts fade away, new whiteboard, new first day. What if joy was the metric on the page right now? You got time in the tank, you got scars in the bank, all that pressure you carry, you can flip it, flip it.